And now, I'd like to introduce our special guest, Ms. Anna Marie Sewell. You have been reading her and writing in dialogue with her throughout the week. We've been together since Monday for 8 hours every day, quite intensive. I should mention that Anna Marie Sewell and I have never met.
I don't think you guys know each other.
No. I had heard so much about her. It's been quite a while ago that I contacted you originally.
Last year or about this time.
Yeah, about a year ago. And as they say in the world of hip-hop, she got game. Because I asked if she'd be willing to consider a Dialogic session. And she said yes. And so we've emailed, we've only spoken on the phone twice, and once was yesterday. And there's an expression, taking a leap of faith. Søren Kierkegaard, the Danish theologian of the mid-1800s, coined that expression, taking a leap of faith. Anna Marie Sewell took a leap of faith and joins us today. So without further ado, I'm going to pass her the mic so that I can get out what we're going to be dialoguing about.
Should I say something? Okay, I didn't so much take a leap as I took 2A. The traffic was good. And it's really nice to be here in Maskwacis. I've never been to Maskwacis. I've been to Hobbima. Oh, a little higher, sorry. I've been to Hobbima, but it's cool to come to Maskwacis now. You know, I just think that's really cool. And it's always inspiring up in Edmonton to hear all the things that people are doing here to build this community. And I don't know, I know we're going to get into the work we're going to do, but I just have to say, like, as an Aboriginal person, I was listening to the news this morning, and there was this terrible story about a couple of girls in India who got gang raped and murdered, and you know, so there's this whole outrageous thing that's going on, and it is outrageous, and it is terrible, and it is a tragedy. But I just feel weird doing this. I know it's for the recording, isn't it? But I feel weird talking to you like this because I feel like I want to just talk to you like this, but sorry. I'll remember that we're recording and keep the mic up. Anyway, it's a terrible story, and we should feel the pain and hurt and outrage of it, but I thought, what does balanced reporting really mean? How come, you know, how can we accept as correct that if it bleeds, it leads, and anything we're hearing about India, why don't they have a balance there? Why don't they say, here's this terrible thing that happened, and then follow it up with a story that says, oh, and by the way, India is where Vandana Shiva and the village cooperative organizations are leading the fight against Monsanto and the taking away of food rights from people worldwide, you know, or something like that. And I think, oh, that's the same thing we get here. It's so often that you get the terrible story, but where's the balance? And I think that we're all working toward making that balance happen, at least here on a local level, and I think that's a good thing. I'm glad every time I hear a more balanced view of what our communities are up to, every time I hear good things, you know, because they're always going on, they're always happening, they just don't get as much coverage as the scary, bad, everyone should stay home and be afraid things. And that's not just in our community, it's just everywhere, right? Anyway, that's what I was thinking about, and thinking, well, yeah, this isn't that. This is people doing something, and I like being part of that. Okay, back to you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Well, for accepting our invitation. First, I should mention to you that this is officially called Change It Up. So we did change it up. We changed our names. And they decided as a community what they wanted to call themselves, and they decided collectively on Universal Cree Philosophers. So we welcome you to the circle of the Universal Cree Philosophers, and then each of them gave themselves, because it's an entrepreneurial, they're going into business for themselves, starting up their own businesses, they gave themselves a brand name. Don't be surprised when you hear Mighty Mouse, Wonder Woman, Amazon, Far Beyond, Knockout, Princess Goddess, Samsonite, Buffalo Thunder, Sweetie Pie.
Okay, so wait a minute. Am I gonna get to know who's who before we go any further? Because I'm going like, okay, which one of you guys is that princess one? No, I don't want to know.
Well, you're going to get to know right now.
Pass the mic around.
I'm not good.
Samsonite.
CJ.
Far Beyond.
Wonder Woman. Skinny. Princess Goddess.
TML. Sweetie Pie.
Rock Woman.
Buffalo Thunder.
Kenji.
H-Town Presto.
Amazon.
Winter Hawk.
Omiuso.
My name is Wendy.
I'm Mighty Mouse.
Thank you. Well, throughout the week we have been going through the writings of Anna Marie Sewell, and we are awaiting her brand name as a member, invited guest, inducted into the Universal Cree Philosophers. I bet you she'll come up with one before we're through today. Now, what we did, they had no idea who was coming. They didn't know if it was a man, a woman, native, non-native. They had no idea. They didn't know what they were reading. Now is the moment of truth. Everything you read is from her book, Fifth World Drum, published by Frontenac House, which is in Calgary. And to keep this as a blank slate so that they could write everything that came to mind, I would take, for example, and I never called it poetry or poems. I said, these are words. Now the reason I do that is because after 23 years of teaching university, I quickly surmised that if I called something poetry, the students' immediate reaction was, I don't know anything about poetry. I'm not a poet. I don't know how to read a poem. So I engaged in what I call demythologizing poetry and just say, here are the words. And there's no title either of the book or of the poem or name of the author. There's no page number, there is no reference. The words stand or fall on their own. And I invited them sort of in a New Kids on the Block vein to go step by step through your writing. The first step, read it straight through and write one word about it. Read it a second time straight through and write one sentence about it. Read it a third time straight through and write one paragraph about it. Read it a fourth time straight through and in a stream of consciousness vein, write everything that goes through your mind when you read this. And then read it again and give it a name. I call this, what name would you give to these words, to this piece of writing?
Okay, well, let's hear what they came up with.
Okay.
What it's called. And do I have to pick my own name, or do people give me a name? Like,
Yeah, you pick your own.
Oh,
You
yeah,
pick your
okay,
name.
okay, I'll wait for it till it.
So, the privilege we have now is you read the words on the page, but now the poet herself will read the words that she created, that she wrote. And we'll begin with what she titled Worm Medicine.
Can I preface this?
Sure, please.
I'll preface this by telling you that the idea for this poem came both from gardening, I love to garden, and from a lady called Maria Formolo. I don't know if you guys ever heard of her. She was up in Edmonton for a couple of decades working as a dance artist and an instructor. And at a time in my life when there was a lot of crap going on, she gave these workshops all the time, and I happened to turn up at one of her workshops, and she gave me an exercise to do. Said, okay, you be a worm. And she made us all be worms and just go through the shit. And I thought, oh, that's profound. That's great. Is it great? If you're ever feeling really stressed out, and you can do it with each other now because you all know each other and you won't feel embarrassed, but otherwise do it when no one's watching because it looks pretty weird. You go on the floor and just be a worm. Just picture the shit that you're crawling through and make like a worm, go through it. And then you can understand that you just go through. I felt really good after, I was really relaxed. Keep the birds away. Worm medicine. Earthworm, indivisible one, feeds on the smallest of things. What is dead, what is rotting, what is unholy and shunned is the food of worms. No glory here and little choice. You take what is given to you and you break it down. Find even the single molecule that is good and make fertilizer of what you don't absolutely need to stay alive. To the worm. Tighter than to the bone. You are honed down to the worm, and above you the whole sky and world are filled with the beauty that feeds on your tiny work. You move in small, relentless steps, your whole body committed. Whatever shit they dump you in, you move through it. You pass it through you. Glean the good, leave food for flowers. Like old Francis of Assisi, you commit your one prayer. Oh, make me a channel of your peace. And it's for Maria.
Thank you. Well, we'll now go through step by step how the universal Cree philosophers experienced, without knowing its title, worm medicine. One word, surviving. It just reminds me of after it rains. When it comes to my mind at all, I think about an earthworm on a fish hook. And I used to watch a cartoon back in the day called Earthworm Jim. Stream of consciousness. Now that I think about it, I feel sorry for the worm. And I wonder why worms just come out after it rains, like in town streets, on the pavement, ever since I was a kid. That's all I remember. And when I was a kid, I used to have a game called Earthworm Jim on Super Nintendo. I also asked them to write a tweet, to tweet the piece of writing. I want to do research on a worm. Now I want to know how they even evolve. Where do they come from? The title they gave to your poem? Squirming around. Because that's all a worm does, is squirm around. Thank you. And here is another universal Cree philosopher. One word, important. One sentence, you are important, and Mother Nature relies on you. One paragraph. Most people make earthworms sound icky or even scary, but this writing told us how important and how much hard work a worm is. I love the earth and nature. It was really great to read this poem. Worms remind me of a hard-working bee. Stream of consciousness. I'm going to look for worms when I get home and put them in my garden. And they put a little heart. No matter how tough things get, stay earthworm strong. And they wrote a smiley face. Remain strong, worm. Their tweet, earthworms are amazing little creatures that leave food for flowers. I named this earthworm. Then I asked them to give their working definition of shit. Here's this universal Cree philosopher's working definition. Shit is issues that need to be dealt with. Okay? There you go. Oh. Well, did you hear that? Knockout acknowledged. Normally, it all remains anonymous, and nobody ever says who wrote what, but we invite them to claim their writing. So that's a...
And I did get worms out.
And you did get worms after. Way to go, knockout. Well, here's another universal Cree philosopher. First word that came to mind was ant. One sentence. I take it that an ant or worm has some good in them and work hard at what is given to them. One paragraph. I'm fascinated at what these little creatures can do with what's given to them and make use of everything. Stream of consciousness. The good Lord's little creatures do have a job, and they have a purpose in life, like we all have a reason that we exist on this planet Earth. Their tweet to this piece of writing: I figure that these tiny creatures help the whole world go round and round. They have a purpose in life, and they know how to survive. My working definition of shit: I define shit as something that I don't want to do, but I will do it if I have to. Being forced to do something is what I don't like at all. Some jobs are like that, and thinking too much is also a tough job. Now, we won't get to read all of them, Miss Sewell, but here's another, and I'll stop after this one and invite you to riff on it. It's very informal and open it up for questions. It's a collective conversation. One word: utility. One sentence: it's synonymous with the struggle of life. One paragraph: there is purpose for all God's creatures. There is no job too small for anyone. Even the worms that crawl in the dirt. There is nothing beneath you. We are all equal. Life is about perspective and perseverance. Stream of consciousness. Relentless. Stuck in the muck. Perseverance. Faith. Blind faith. Purpose. Unglamorous. Utility. Useful. Necessary. Needed. Behind the curtain. Puppet master. Unsung hero. Underdog. Their tweet: modesty and humility come to mind when I read the earthworm's story. I name this doormat. No matter what the earthworm goes through, it is relentless in its approach, unwavering in its ability to perform the most mundane task. My working definition of shit: the most loyal people go through the most bullshit. It is what you are willing to put up with in life. It's the struggle, the stress, and everything in between. So I invite you to riff on that.
The struggle, the stress, and everything in between. Shoo, what can I say about that? Really, except that that's every day and that's everything that we do. And it's also just half of the story. And yeah, it really is. I like what they said about perspective there. That it's all in how you look at things. Is it a good thing? Or is it something that you just have to endure? And you can turn anything into one or the other, you know. And I think a lot about being a troublemaker. I think about that because that's what I do for a living. And and I have a lot of fun. Like, I don't make a lot of money, but I have a lot of fun, and that's kind of worth a lot right there. I think that I've always had this idea that that was what my life purpose was, and that made it easy to do it on the one hand. But on the other hand, sometimes I think, what a silly thing to do. What the heck, where did you ever get the idea this is what to do? And I think that it helps at times like that to think about worms and look around and go, yeah, here's me going, here's what I have to do that's tough, but look at these guys here, you know. Are they gonna make it across the sidewalk? I don't know. It's a big deal to them, you know, and really, we don't know anything about anything. We're just down here at a little level here that from a long way away looks like nothing but a crack, you know. It's a crack in the sidewalk of whatever. And that helps. I don't know why that helps. I guess because the other side of that is inside of us. There's a whole universe. I love to think about that too. You know, to a little piece of a little virus inside a cell. You know, we're huge. We're just these huge tumbling universes. There's galaxies all inside us, and well, which is true? Are we tiny, 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 or huge, huge, huge? I guess we're both. Makes me think about when I was a kid. Did you ever see that movie, Incredible Journey? Anybody? When I was a kid, it came out the first time. Then they remade it, like with Martin Short, I think. Was it Martin Short? One of those Canadian comedy guys. I think it was him. Inner Space, yeah, yeah. And it was The Incredible Journey when I was a kid, and boy, we just loved that show. And that's what we would play at school, me and my buddies. We'd pretend we were going inside the body, and we'd drive around inside the imaginary body all over the schoolyard. Let's go shut an eye! And we'd all, you know, figure out things we could do. And of course, the biggest dare of all would be, would you dare to go down to the butt of this imaginary? Really, right? And we'd always try and make it through recess without somebody getting to the, come on, let's all go down to the butt. Oh man, not again. And it's a fascinating thing to think, I just don't know what goes on in there. I really don't. But if I don't know what goes on in here, how can I know what's going on out there? It's pretty amazing, and that kind of, well, that's kind of relaxing. I don't know when to stop. You have to stop me or I'll just keep talking all day. This is the problem here. Okay.
Well, we have the operative principle of the Universal Cree philosophers is that there's only one wrong question. That's the unasked question. So we'd like to open it up now for questions. Anything you always wanted to ask a poet but never dared ask. Who would like to start us off here? Yes, TML.
Anna, how much is your book? I would like to purchase a book. No, for real, I'd like to purchase.
This copy I'm giving as a gift to your library here. And I looked around my house, I didn't have any other copies with me. I was like, oh, I can sell some books. It's a business class. But I forgot that I'm still waiting for a little shipment from the distributor, so I'm sorry to tell you. I could offer you a special deal, but I don't have any with me. There's $15.95 at Audrey's and Greenwood. No, this Greenwood still exists. U of A bookstore sells it, and there may be a few in the chapters too, I'm not sure. But I'm sorry I don't have any for sale today, just this one to leave behind.
Okay.
Thank you for wanting to know.
Well, I was more than willing to purchase one, for real.
Maybe I might have one at Learns in the past, because she always gets like the local authors and whatever's published locally, or anybody in the community or in the community. She's got her own little section, especially if there's any negotiations. Yeah, she's got a whole section.
You know what would be great? Go down there and ask you to order a bunch of them, because then this like really looks good for the publishers too, right? They're like, oh, hey, it's still relevant.
It's very relevant. Where's it at?
Princess Goddess has a question.
How did you get started? Did you just like write your own poems right away, like from just being at home or something, or in school, or did you go to school for like creative writing, or how did you get started? That's what the question.
Good question, because they're starting up their businesses, and starting is the first step.
I don't know when I started. I was born this way, and my parents were really aware of, you look for in your kids what they're born like, you know, and what they're gonna do. So I was always making little poems and stories. I remember, but there was a problem with that, because I remember when I was 6 years old, I really wasn't very aware of what I was doing, and I wrote this really great song. And then a couple years later, I'm coming home from school, and some bugger's on the radio singing my song, "That'll Be the Day." And I'm going, what? I wrote that. I know I did. I was coming off the bus, and this song came in my head, and I wrote it. But of course I didn't, you know. So, but at first I thought I wrote a couple of Gordon Lightfoot songs too, you know. As I got older, I started to understand what that was, and to pick up, instead of just listening to the radio, I just listened to what was going on around me and pick up things and use them to actually write stuff down. I remember writing a poem, and this one I did write in grade 3, which was about the last train ride, the last passenger train in our territory up around Grand Prairie area. And I was so proud of myself because I used the word slew in a poem, you know, and I thought, hey, slew. And when I look back, I'm still proud of that, because I think slews don't get enough poetry about them. In the world stage, that's right. You know, I was representing for the slews back when I was 7 and 8 years old. And I always come back to that and think, you know, you have to stay with what really inspires you when you're a kid. I did study creative writing at university. I did it because it's funny that you mentioned Kierkegaard. That's funny, because in my first year of university, I was going to be a visual artist. I love visual art, and I took a visual art course. It was great fun, but geez, it was tedious. It's so tedious because we were doing color blocks and color wheels, and I'm going, am I not in university? What is this? But I kind of had a crush on the most favorite artist in the class, so I stayed through the whole year. And he really liked Soren Kierkegaard, right? And I was like, okay, I guess I better study philosophy. And then one day I woke up and went, why would I want to do that? For some guy, that doesn't seem like me. Wait a second. I don't want to know about Kierkegaard. I had this philosophy class in my time telling, wait, I don't want to do that. That's his bag. What's my bag here? And there was a creative writing class, so I went, that's my bag. Because also I had heard Marilyn Dumont doing a thing. I was at a Métis Women's Conference, and that was my first year at university as well. And she got up and read a poem, and I went, hey, that's my bag. Wait a minute, we can do that. And I always think of, you know, that Far Side, the Far Side comics. Yeah, right. There's one where there's cowboys in their wagon, and there's flaming arrows coming in, and they look at each other and go, hey, can they do that? And I always hold that in mind, because my sister had that on her wall. Hey, can they do that? And I thought, yeah, that's my motto in life. Hey, find the things where you go, hey, can you do that? Yeah, that's what I do. And I did take creative writing classes, and they helped me to understand a lot of different things. A lot of things about where you have to negotiate between what's your voice and what's somebody else's idea of what's a currently good voice. And there was a war on when I was in creative writing classes. There was a war against the, and, all the little words. They were at war with the little words. And it was sort of the thing, you cut those out. If you see a the, whoosh, kill it, right? Yeah. And everybody wanted to take out all those little words. And I thought, after a while, I thought, gee, that's just not fair. Those little words are good too. And I started sneaking them back in. And you know, representing for the those. Because I thought it wasn't right that they should be stepped on like that. It wasn't quite right. And I dropped out of my second year writing class, my senior year writing class, for two reasons. One, because I thought, you know, there's only so much at a time that a writer should be able to do of sitting every week in a seminar with the same people and sharing stuff. At some point, you got to open it out. You got to get out and look at other things and other perspectives. When you know everything that everyone's going to say about your stuff beforehand, time to change it up. So that was one reason. And the other reason was because our professor said to us being me and my friend Stephen, we were kind of the lesser than poets. We weren't the favorite poets. We weren't the chosen poets. We weren't the ones who were readily killing the thaws and coming up with the popular poetry, right? Well, Stephen helped me run away to join the theater, and